Here's a quick reading from Pema Chodron, and it's called The Fine Art of Failure. Our natural human habit is to hope continually for a life of nothing but happiness and pleasure. We're always searching for a way not to feel any of the unpleasant stuff. But we can only embark wholeheartedly on a genuine spiritual path when we start getting the haunting sense that this dream will never come true. Unless we have some inkling of this reality, it will be hard for us to move toward opening to the wholeness of life. Instead, we will continue to follow the habits that keep us stuck in repetitive anxiety and dissatisfaction for generation after generation across time. The Buddha spoke a lot about the importance of working with one's ego. But what did he mean by ego? There are various ways to talk about this word, but one definition I particularly like is that which resists what is. Ego struggles against reality, against the open-endedness and natural movements of life. It is very uncomfortable with vulnerability and ambiguity, with not being quite sure how to pin things down. A few years ago, I was asked to give a graduation speech at Naropa University. I thought a lot about what I could say to a group of people who were about to go into the world where they had no idea what would happen. Of course, none of us know what is going to happen, but graduating from college can be an especially challenging transition. For a few years, you have your familiar campus, your student lifestyle and routines. Then, suddenly, things are no longer set in the same way, and your life becomes wide open. I thought about how, in education, there's a lot of emphasis on success, but very little on failure. So I decided to talk about the fine art of failure. As I told the students, learning how to fail will help us more than anything else in life in the next 6 months, the next year, the next 10 years, the next 20 years, for as long as we live until we drop dead. When we fail, in other words, when things don't work out the way we want them to, we feel our vulnerability in a raw and powerful way. Our uncomfortable ego tries to escape from that rawness. One of the most common methods is to blame our failure on something outside of us. Our relationship doesn't work out, so we blame the other person, or perhaps their entire gender. We can't get a job, so we blame our potential employers, or society as a whole, or the current political situation. The other common approach is to feel bad about ourselves and label ourselves a failure. Either way, we often end up feeling there's something fundamentally wrong with us. There's a third way, however, which is to train ourselves simply to feel what we feel. I like to call this holding the rawness of vulnerability in our heart. When we're resisting or trying to escape from what is, there is usually some kind of physical sign, a tightening or contraction somewhere in the body. When you notice this sign of resistance, see if you can stick with the raw feeling of discomfort just for a moment, just long enough for your nervous system to start getting used to it. Trungpa Rinpoche once said that we don't have the patience to stay with uncomfortable feelings for even 3 minutes. For most of us these days, staying with discomfort for even 3 seconds is a lot of work. But whatever the amount of time, the idea is to keep increasing it gradually at your own pace. Keep allowing yourself to hang in there for just a bit longer. You may have a fixed idea of what you're experiencing, such as dread, anger, or disappointment. But when you let yourself be present with the feeling and experience it directly, you find that you can't pin it down so easily. That dread or anger keeps morphing and shifting and changing. Even though its unpleasantness haunts you, even though it feels so threatening, when you look hard you discover that you can't really find anything substantial. The ego wants resolution, wants to control impermanence, wants something secure and certain to hold on to. It freezes what is actually fluid. It grasps at what is in motion. It tries to escape the beautiful truth of the fully alive nature of everything. As a result, we feel dissatisfied, haunted, threatened. We spend much of our time in a cage created by our own fear of discomfort. The alternative to this struggle is to train in holding the rawness of vulnerability in our heart. Through this practice, we can eventually accustom our nervous systems to relaxing with the truth, to relaxing with the impermanent, uncontrollable nature of things. We can slowly increase our ability to expand rather than contract, to let go rather than cling. Every time we practice holding the rawness of vulnerability in our heart, we gain a little insight into how things really are. We experience directly how nothing ever stays the same, even for a moment. We can't make anything stand still, even if we try. What we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think about is constantly changing. Even our heaviest, most unpleasant emotions have no solidity to them. There's a music video of Beyoncé's song, Pretty Hurts, where she really captures what it's like to feel like a failure. Her feeling is so raw. And she just puts it all out there into the song. You realize that even though she's a roaring success and everything is going her way, she couldn't have made the video unless she had some real experience of what it feels like to fail. When we're able to hold the rawness of vulnerability in our hearts, we can use that energy to create poetry, writing, dance, music, song. We can make of it something that touches and communicates with other people. Artists have done this from the beginning of time. If we close down to our unpleasant feelings without awareness or curiosity, if we always mask ourselves or try to make our vulnerability go away, out of that space come addictions of all kinds. Out of that space come aggression, striking out, violence against others, all the ugly things. On the other hand, if we can go beyond blame and other escapes and just feel the bleeding, raw meat quality of our vulnerability, we can enter a space where the best part of us comes out. Our bravery, our kindness, our ability to care about and reach out to others, all our best human qualities come out of that space. We all have tremendous potential, and yet we stay closed in a very small, fearful world based on wanting to avoid the unpleasant, the painful, the insecure, the unpredictable. There is vast, limitless richness and wonder we could experience if we fully accustomed our nervous systems to the open-ended, uncertain reality of how things are. As Trungpa Rinpoche said, there are sounds that you've never heard, smells that you've never smelled, sights that you've never seen, thoughts that you've never thought. The world is astoundingly full of potential for further and further and further opening, experiencing it wider and wider and wider. When we learn how to hold the rawness of vulnerability in our hearts, we will be able to experience our minds and hearts as vast as the universe.